In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to build a stunning all-white gaming PC build around AMD's latest RX 9070 XT. A build that's not only going to look the part with some visually incredible components, but provide great performance too, and hopefully at prices that, as time progresses, aren't going to break the bank. I'll also be guiding you guys through some common mistakes to avoid in a build like this, showing you what goes well and maybe what goes a little bit wrong. Let's do this. The Gigabyte G6X is here, packing plenty of power with the Intel Core HX processor lineup and NVIDIA GeForce RTX 40 series laptop GPUs for powerful gaming, Dolby Atmos integration, power delivery 3.0 for fast Type-C charging, and a 90% screen-to-bezel ratio provide an immersive experience with all the home comforts. The 165Hz refresh rate and 16:10 aspect ratio make it great for gaming on the go or getting work done. Learn more at the first links in the description below. Let's start today's build by talking about the main event. I am of course referring to this, the PowerColor Hellhound Spectral White. Now this right here might be my favourite looking 9070 XT yet, and it's a card where PowerColor have just taken it up a notch as far as design goes. Now when I was picking out the white card I wanted for this build, I wanted to make sure the whole thing was colour matched. Not just with the white fans and a white shroud, we've actually got an all white backplate with some tasteful silver accents, white moulding on the actual PSU connections, a white metal PCIe backplane, and a fully white heatsink. They've actually really taken colour coding on this card seriously. Oh, and of course the PCB, which you can hardly see, is, you guessed it, white. Now the 9070 XT has largely been a very successful launch for AMD. Yes, it's faced similar issues to NVIDIA around the card selling out. That's because it's actually really worth you buying, but the quantities we've seen in retail have been way higher than what we've seen on the NVIDIA cards, and I'm really hopeful that the MSRP will actually stick. Now this is going to cost you more than the MSRP because it's a non-standard design, but the idea is that you guys shouldn't be spending like hundreds of dollars over MSRP. Avoid cards like that, avoid retailers doing that. It's not what we want. One thing that a great new AMD GPU allows me to do too is build an all AMD gaming PC build. And what better motherboard to pick than this, the Gigabyte AORUS B850 Elite Wi-Fi 7 ICE. Now ICE is Gigabyte's branding for fully white gaming PC components. And let me tell you, you're in for a treat when I show you this thing. It is unbelievable. I've actually built with this board loads, as it's used in a couple of the systems we sell on GeekaPC here in the UK. I'll link that down below, but it's stunning. You can see everything's color coded, from the RAM DIMMs to the socket cover to the AMD stock retention brackets, and even all the moldings for the HD audio, ARGB from it is beautiful. You get some really cool handy features too, like an easy PCI release latch that makes installing and taking the graphics card out really simple. And if we flick around to the rear I/O just here, you can see we've got easy Wi-Fi 7 support, optical audio, and loads of high-speed USBs, including a high-speed Ethernet if you want one. Wi-Fi 7 is kind of overkill right now if you haven't got super fancy router, but it's going to give you good signal strength and better speed, especially in the long run. As far as memory goes, I've gone for a slightly unlikely candidate in today's build. This is the Thermaltake TOUGHRAM XG. Now, Thermaltake make memory? Well, yeah, kind of. Obviously, they buy the memory chips in, do all the heat spreader and stuff, get it all looking lovely. And this is a really high-speed 7200 mega transfer kit that looks unbelievable. You can see this is a build that's about performance but looking amazing, and I just love the design. I think it's one of the nicest looking kits of memory I've seen in a really long time. It's very tasteful, it's very classy. It's going to cost you marginally more than what you'll spend on a cheaper standard kit, but I think it's worth it for this system today. Let's talk about the CPU next. I've got the AMD Ryzen 5 9600X, 6 cores, 12 threads, and boost clock speeds well in excess of 5 GHz. Plus, it's better than anything Intel have got to offer for anywhere near a similar price, and is currently AMD's best mid-range gaming CPU. I don't need to say much more about it. Not sponsored, it's just what you should buy if you want to build a PC. If you want to save some money, I've also ordered in AMD's new Non-X 9600, which is slightly cheaper, slightly lower clock speeds, but this for now is what we're going to use. Storage, I've gone for this. This is the MSI Spatium M480 Pro. This is a 2TB drive. It sits right at the top of the Gen 4 standard. You could save some money and go for the 1TB. Ultimately, how much you pay for the GPU and how much storage you buy in this build will determine whether it's $1,500, $1,600 or $1,700. That all depends on these two components above all else. Thermaltake have been on a bit of a roll recently. I have gone for a Thermaltake cooler in this build. But before that, I want to show you the case I've opted for. Now this right here is a pretty affordable, around $79 PC case, and it's the View 270 TG. In many respects, this is a fairly no-frills case, and there's a few sort of cost-saving measures in here that I'm going to refer to in a moment. However, it's built pretty well. You get a nice tempered glass panel. We don't want any tint, as we want to see all the components in their glory. You get room for two 120mm intake fans on the side. You can mount fans on the bottom, and of course room for fans and radiators at the top. You get captive thumb screws on the rear panel as well, and the rear tempered glass panel feels generally pretty good. You get a dust filter here too, so any intake air is filtered for dust, which is nice. Just the one included ARGB fan at the rear here, a decent I/O on the top, which includes USB-C and USB Type-A. In terms of power supply support, you can see there's loads and loads of room down the bottom here for a power supply and a 3.5-inch hard drive for whatever reason. I don't know why you'd want one. Talking of Thermaltake, we have one or two more bits and pieces. This is their cooler. Big thanks to them for sending this out, but again, another really nice addition. This is the TH360 V2 ARGB Sync Snow Edition AIO liquid cooler. Why not just call it the TH360 in white? That might be easier. It's got ARGB fans, so we can control these fully through the motherboard, so no third-party software that's needed. That would allow us to sync it with the RGB on the board, which is good, and keep cable management a bit more simple. The 360mm cooler is slightly overkill. You could save some money, trim a bit of cost out, and go for, say, a cheaper air cooler. However, it's going to give us three 120mm fans up top, which gives us extra exhaust. And then I have picked up some more fans. Where have they gone? I found them, some reverse ARGB sync fans. So these are actually going to go on the side of the case and have the reverse blades for airflow in. A lot of things that I see commonly people get wrong on these chassis is having exhaust fans here. You want them to be intake, otherwise you've got no fresh air in the build. So with that, I think I'm pretty much ready to go. And I'm going to start off, as always, with the motherboard assembly. CPU is first. Just simply push the arm out and up. That's then going to release the socket. Nice and easy. Drop the CPU into place. Socket cover goes back down and the arm returns with no bother. RAM DIMMs are next. I'll be using the second and fourth slots in this build and slide in this pretty stunning white DDR5 memory into place. I absolutely love that this kit looks. I'm going to follow this up with the M.2 SSD. That is going to be installed by pulling this retention clip back, taking the heatsink off, remembering to remove the plastic cover on the thermal pad, and then by sliding the M.2 drive into our top slot just here, clicking it in with the toolless mechanism, and then by returning the top cover into place, getting it nice and flush, and securing it back as it was. With one good looking motherboard assembly ready to go, I'm quite excited to look at how the cooler installs. I always tend to check this now, as by making sure I understand everything, the later parts of the build become quite a bit easier. Now, inside of this bag, you'll find all the hardware you need. It's the same with every cooler. You won't need all the hardware, but all the hardware you need will be there. Taking a quick look, this will all make sense, I promise. We've got a couple of brackets. These brackets right here are actually for Intel, so we don't need any of those in today's build. Instead, we just need this. This right here is the AMD bracket, and combined with this other AMD hardware and two thumb screws, slots over the bottom water block on the cooler. Those are then going to clip over these white clips onto the motherboard, making the installation of the cooler quite easy. Before installing the board, you do just want to check the location of the standoffs. So there's 9 in this case in total, and they actually match up perfectly with the standoffs on the motherboard. So 3 up top, 3 down the middle, and 3 down the bottom. It's then a simple case of me sliding the board into place. The rear I/O is already built in, so no need to worry about that step. Just watch you don't get caught in any fan cables and stuff. And then the board should go in. Looks like it's currently getting, there we are. It got a bit caught on the fan, but only for a moment. And once that's in, I'm just going to secure it down. 9 screws. All these come included in the accessory bag that you get with the View 270. The next step after that is the cooler. Now, what you're going to want to do with the CPU cooler is pop the fans, which remember are going to exhaust through the cooler and out the case onto the bottom of the radiator first. All the screws and stuff you need for this are included with the cooler, and rather handily are daisy chainable. So once they've been popped on, they can be plugged into one another to minimize cable management for a little bit later. And then comes the hard bit of actually getting the radiator in and doing the balancing act that is this stage of the process. So I'm going to run the cable through, get that out the way, and then hold the rad itself basically in position. 2 screws will just hold it into place enough to take the pressure and give us a bit of breathing time. There you are. So 2 screws are in. Obviously, need to make sure you get them all in to keep the radiator nice and secure. It's quite tight up here, so in terms of like the power cables later, it's fine, but it might be a little bit of a challenge. And the cables, as you can see here, I'm going to tuck nice and neatly out the way. And again, they can all be tied down in a little bit if they're still causing us some problems. So as you can see, just going to screw the radiator in with the screws that come included with the CPU cooler itself, just to make sure this is nice and secure. A drop of thermal paste on there, sort of a large grain of rice is roughly the size you want to be. Take off any protective film and then get the water block on. I'm just making sure the tubes aren't in the way, and that's looking pretty good. It is going to need tightening down just to get enough tension such that the water block is actually going to cool the CPU. So do each screw bit by bit. You don't want to get one fully tight. You want to do them evenly as you go, and then tuck those cables away to be wired up a little bit later. With the radiator in, there's just a couple of bits left to do. I need to put some intake fans on the side. These are Thermaltake's reverse blade ARGB, so they use the universal connector and will sync up with the cooler, motherboard, RAM and everything really easily. I'm also going to go ahead and pop the GPU in, which I'm pretty excited about, and finish things off with the power supply. To be honest, I would probably, if you're going to copy this build, do the power supply before the cooler, as it's actually going to make accessing some of the cables and connectors in this build pretty difficult. And with the fans in, it's time to pop the graphics card into place. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hover the GPU over the very, very top slot. And actually, as you can see here, it's the first 2 that need removing. I said earlier that these weren't the reusable slot type. They aren't, except for the top one, which is, I think Thermaltake give you one so that if you accidentally remove the wrong PCI slot, you actually do have one spare. It's to sort of protect you in the case that things go, well, a little bit wrong. Now, with that done, we're going to make sure that the slot is pushed back, the little clip on the end. Going to slide this stunning looking graphics card into place. PowerColor have done such a good job on the design of this thing. And then wait for the click. Yeah, look at that. So the screw I've just removed from our captive PCI lane, that is going to fasten into place nice and easily. And I'm going to pop an extra one at the top just to be double secure. Before closing this cover down, which is mainly for aesthetic reasons above all else, a little something like so. Look at that. That build is really starting to come together. Now to wrap things up, and before we take a look at those all-important gaming benchmarks, I'm going to also add in the power supply, which is Thermaltake Smart BM3, and some easy DIY fab white cable extensions for good measure. Taking a look at performance, and we tested this build primarily at 1440p, and a quick glance at the numbers on your screen now shows just how much power it has to offer. To take a closer look into a couple of these titles, and Call of Duty's Black Ops 6 Zombies, for example, at 1440p high, delivered just over 150 FPS on average, and look frankly fantastic in the process. An esports game like Apex Legends, which is obviously a bit easier to run at 1440p high rasterization, delivered a staggering 268 FPS on average, while finally Marvel's Rivals at 1440p high also delivered great frame rates, just shy of 140 FPS from this build. I absolutely love how good this system looks and think PowerColor knocked it out the park with their new white 9070 XT. I'll leave links to everything mentioned today at the affiliate links in the description below for latest pricing and availability. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.